Well, if you want to go ahead and turn, we're going to be in Psalm 139. Let's just go to the Lord in prayer one more time. God, I pray that you would give me your strength. God, that you would just speak mightily through this text. God, that you would just help us understand the power of your name. How great that really is. God, I just pray that we would know you, God, that you would use this time to draw us closer to you. God, speak to us. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. The psalm that we're going to be looking at this morning, Psalm 139, it's one of my favorites. It really focuses on the attributes of God. I kind of titled this sermon, The Omnis of God. And you're going to be really disappointed with point number 4. You'll find out a little bit later why. But the Omnis of God. I mean, we're going to learn some new words today, probably. But it's so important to just know the character of God. To know God. One of the things that I've done in recent weeks as we've been studying the Psalms is every one we've done, Psalm 31, Psalm 51, Psalm 139, have been written by David. A man that was called by God, a man after God's own heart. That's how David's described. And then looking at his life, it's like, man, he blew it. Time and time again. I mean, as a teenager, he stood up to a giant that nobody else in one of the fiercest armies on earth was willing to stand up against. Because he believed in the strength and power of God. But then it was just a few years later, about when he was about 19, he was in a bar, a tavern. And he sees a couple Philistines. They begin to talk about him. And so in his fear, he fakes a seizure, and they throw him out of the bar. The same guy that through God's power conquered a giant was scared of a couple of Joe Schmo. Then, like we looked at last week, this guy that was lazy, coveted after his neighbor's wife, lusted, committed adultery and murder. And yet what we find is that God calls him a man after his own heart. Why? And I think the psalm that we're dealing with today really explains why God would call this guy a man after his own heart. It's because David spent a lot of time trying to know and understand and know God well. You can see that in the attributes that he talks about. He just ponders on the things of God. And this does two things, two really important things that we all need to constantly be striving to do. One, this helps him understand who God really is and what he's really capable of. And puts God in right relationship with himself. Right? It's constantly thinking about him on the throne. And what that does at the same time is makes you have a right view of yourself. So David constantly was molding and shaping his view of God and how powerful and how great he really was. Which in turn made him have a right view of himself before the Lord. And so that's my goal this morning, is that we would continue to grow a right view and understanding of God, while simultaneously growing a right view and understanding of ourselves. And one of the things I really don't want us to do is, because we're going to be talking about some of God's attributes. But what happens a lot of times whenever we talk about the greatness of God, it is something that is so incomprehensible that we lump it up as just something way over here. Let me explain to you what I mean. $1 trillion is something that you can't comprehend. Right? You will never see $1 trillion. You'll never touch $1 trillion in your entire life. That's something that you cannot comprehend. So what we do is that we lump that and that's a lot of money. You know, when we talk about our debt as a country, $16+ trillion of debt, That's a lot of money. But let me try to help you comprehend that a little bit. So if you ever do encounter $1 trillion, remember to tithe. But also, you can know a little bit about what the emphasis of that is and how big of a number that really is. 1,000,000 seconds ago, we're going to put this in time. I like numbers. I like numbers a lot. So 1,000,000 seconds ago is about 12 days ago. 11.57 if you want to get technical, but about 12 days ago. Right? That's something that we can wrap our minds around. 1,000,000 seconds ago. Now, 1,000,000,000 seconds ago, you're probably already guessing what that might be, but 1,000,000,000 seconds ago is January 1986. All right, so 1,000,000 seconds ago is 12 days. 1,000,000,000 seconds ago is January 1986. And now 1,000,000,000,000 seconds ago. 1,000,000,000,000 seconds ago is 29,705 BC. 1,000,000,000,000 seconds ago. And so like I said before, that's something that we can't even comprehend. That's something that we can't wrap our minds around. And how much more true is that with the God of the universe? He is uncomprehendable. He is so much greater and abundant than 1,000,000,000,000 and 1,000,000,000,000 trillions. But what I fear that we often do is in his incomprehensibility, we just love him and say, man, God is good all the time. All the time, God is good. And that is one of the most true statements that you can say, but we watered that down to next to nothing. The goodness of God is something that cannot be measured. The power of God is something that can't be measured. Instead of just putting that off to the side and never thinking on that again, let's begin to pursue that. Pursue the all-knowing ability of God. Pursue his power. To think deeply on that. And so that's what I want us to do this morning. These are some simple truths of God. But they have eternal impacts. So we're going to start in Psalm 139, verse 1. We're going to read through the whole chapter. And David did a great job of breaking it up into 4 sections. So then we're going to walk through each section and talk about different characteristics of God. Starting in verse 1. It says, O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down. And are acquainted with all my ways. And even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in, behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. Where shall I go from your spirit, or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the earth, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night. Even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, for darkness is as light for you. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you. When I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them. The days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them, if I would count them. They are more than the sand. I awake and I am still with you. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. O men of blood, depart from me. They speak evil. They speak against you with malicious intent. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with complete hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. God, I pray that you would use this text to speak to us God, that you would convict our hearts and challenge us. And God, help us to better understand your greatness and your goodness. In Jesus' name, amen. One disclaimer is that after this sermon, you will not be able to fully understand God. I keep using that word, incomprehensible. He will never be fully known, because that would not make him not God. Because in our finite minds, we can't fully comprehend him, but that does not mean that we don't pursue that. All right, so like I said, there's 4 sections here. The first section, the first set of 6 verses, continually talks about the omniscience of God. The omniscience of God. Like I said, we got the omnis of God this morning, and we're going to learn some new words. But what omniscient means is the all-knowing. That God knows all. What I love about this text is that so David can get a better grip on things. He compares these attributes of God to himself in his own life. And so when he's talking about the omniscience of God, he's saying, you know when I sit down, when I stand up. You know what I'm about to say before I even say it. You know that even the finest details of me that nobody else would even care to know. I was thinking about this yesterday. Kirsten and I were driving home. And one of the things that we like to do on road trips is that we like to play the newlywed game with each other. We like to do that for 2 different reasons. One, it's a good conversation starter. Asking some of the questions. We got a website we go to. They just got tons and tons of questions. But one thing we love about it is it helps us remember the good times. Right? It was asking questions about our first date, what we were wearing, who made the first move, and I mean all these other things. And we're talking through those. So and we just enjoy that. The second reason we like playing that game is that if we ever do make it on that show, we are going to win it. I guarantee you. We strategize. Make sure you put this answer right. But what I've learned in that game is I've known her more intricately than I've known anybody ever. And yet there's still so much I've forgotten, so much I didn't even know. I've heard stories this weekend that I'd never heard before. I found out things about my wife that I didn't know. And it was in those moments I realized how finite and how minuscule my memory is. And how much I don't hold on to, and how much I don't know. But I imagine you've experienced that in life. That moment of realizing, man, I don't know anything. And I experience that every time I talk with Kirsten's father about cars. I know nothing about cars. I try my best to work on them with YouTube videos. I don't know about the newest model. I don't know anything about it. But Kirsten's dad loves cars. I always grew up around him. And so I give a lot of head nods. Yeah, man, that was awesome. But it's in those moments I realize that I know nothing. It's like, and I even think, man, I know a lot of things about a lot of other things. The Bible, cooking, sports, I know a lot of things about those. But then whenever you get me in something that is outside my element, I quickly realize how little I know. And yet the knowledge of God knows no bounds. It knows no bounds. He knows everything about you. He knows what you're going to do in the future. He knows his path for you. And then not only that, he knows that 7 billion times over for every single person in the universe, for every person to come, for every person that was ever here. That's the God that we worship, a God that is all-knowing. Now, there's some radical implications for that. Whenever I'm talking about that we need to pursue that and tap into that, it's because that changes our lives. Because what we normally do, whenever we're experiencing times of not knowing, times when we don't know the best thing to do in a situation, where do you go to? Who do you look to for answers? It's like more often than not, when we search a Facebook video or an advice column, friends, family, there's so many other things instead of tapping into the one that has all the knowledge of the universe. Now, I experience this a lot. People say, I don't really hear from God. He doesn't really speak in my life. I think the biggest problem is because you don't know the language of God. And if you want to hear God speak, if you want to know how He speaks, you need to be in His Word. Illustration Dr. J uses a lot of times, and other people, is that whenever Kirsten calls me, I never have to say, hello, who is this? If I did, I'd be in trouble. All right, well, when she calls me, if she says hello, if she just breathes, I know that it's her. Because I know her well. I know her voice. Do you know the voice of God? Do you know how He speaks? He speaks through His Word. So if you think you're not hearing from God, well, there's a very big possibility you don't even know His language. You don't know how He speaks. What do you traditionally say about an issue or thing in your life? Like I said before, but instead we try to take the easy way out and search out knowledge from so many other sources that are bound by their knowledge, bound by their experiences, instead of tapping into the God of the universe that knows all things. That's why it's important to know that, to pursue that. Understand the omniscience of God. And the more that we dwell on it, the more that we pursue Him with all things. God is omniscient. In verse 5, it really shows up some other implications of the omniscience of God. It says, you hem me in behind and before me and lay your hand upon me. It's not only does God know every single thing about you, He genuinely cares about you. He cares about you. It's not that He just is forced all His knowledge in His heart life. He wants to know those things about you. He wants to lay His hand on you. He wants to lead you, guide you, direct you in your life. He wants to hem you in because He knows what's best for you. All right, we talked about this a little bit last week, but the Ten Commandments and just the laws of the Lord are not confining. All right, but they actually give us the most freedom. So when it talks here about He's hemmed us in, He's before us and He's behind us, that sounds like He's got us closed in and that we can't go anywhere. But what that actually does is it gives us freedom because God wants us to experience the fullness of joy in Christ. And that can only happen whenever we are pursuing an intimate relationship with Him. And so the restrictions and laws to not pursue pornography or lust or addictions is not to limit your happiness because you're actually never going to find it anything else but the Lord. But these things that are confining you are to help you pursue the cross and pursue ultimate joy. And God knows that. But what happens is whenever we get in the most trouble is that we forget the omniscience of God and we replace our roles, ours with His, and begin to think we know what's best. That we know the best thing to do. You know, something that is easy is for us to look back on our past and see how many times in my life where we thought we knew what's best and we actually pursued that and how wrong we were. Know and believe and understand the omniscience of God because He knows best. And He has a plan for mine in your life. He cares for you. He blesses us. So God is omniscient. The second thing that really goes kind of hand in hand with that we see in verses 7 through 12 is that God is omnipresent. God is omnipresent. That means that He is everywhere at once. This one's even a little bit harder for me to wrap my hands around, my head around. But the way David says it here is like, it doesn't matter if I go into the heavens or in the belly of Sheol, you are there. If I go as far east as I possibly can, if I go as far west as I possibly can, you are there. And that has incredible implications for two different reasons. The first means is that even when we are in the valley of the shadow of death, we will fear no evil because He is there. Joshua 9, God commanded Joshua to be strong and of good courage, be not afraid, and be not dismayed, for the Lord his God was with him wherever he goes. So even when we're getting news about quadruple bypass surgery, God is there. God is in control. That situation is in His hand. And whatever it may be in your life, the valley that you're walking through or coming out of or heading into, God is with you. And God cares about you. And it's in Him that we can fear no evil, that we can take refuge, that we can draw strength from the Lord. Man, that is so comforting. That was particularly comforting to me about 6 or 7 years ago, when there was about 6 months of my life. I didn't think there was a single person in the universe that cared about me. I was so blind. I had some incredible parents and friends and family, but yet I felt so alone. I felt like nobody cared to listen to what I had to say. I was in one of the darkest places of my life when I even began to pursue self-harm because I didn't feel worthy. Didn't have any worth in my life. But it was in that darkness that a good friend of mine helped me pursue the cross. Helped me pursue the character of God. And realized that even in the darkest moment of my life, when I felt like nobody in the world cared about me, nobody was there for me, He was. Loved me. He was there for me. And He was able to redeem that dark place in my life for His glory. I wouldn't change it for anything. He used that situation to draw me to Himself. So that's the wonderful implications of that God is omnipresent. The other one is not as fun to think about. That God is with us in our struggles and in the valleys of our life, but He's also with us in our darkness. In our secret lies that we think that nobody else in the universe knows about. He knows. And this goes hand in hand with the omniscience of God. We do such a good job of convincing people of how good we are. And pushing down the darkness in our heart and in our lives. And never dealing with it. But the person that his only opinion that matters, he already knows. Let's just think for a minute. What if we took every one of your thoughts from the past week? Every thought that you had, we ran them on the screen. Just some thoughts from this morning. For most of us in this room, that terrifies us. There's no way that you would allow us to do that. But yet, the holy God of the universe, He knows every single one of those thoughts. He knows every single one of those secret sins that you think that you're going to get away with. But the reality is that your sin will find you out. Ask Euphrates. The terrible situation that came out a couple weeks ago. Your sin's going to find you out. But it's already been found out by the God, creator of the universe. And whenever we really pursue the omnipresence of God and His omniscience, like I said in the beginning, it helps us get a better understanding of ourselves. And it allows us to be weak. It allows us to be vulnerable. It allows us to put ourselves out there and say, hey, this is something I struggle with. This is a sin that keeps winning in my life. I need help. I need heart change. I need the gospel. So the omnipresence of God has two implications. That even in our darkest valley, even the situation that we don't think we can make it out of, God is there. God is holding on to us. And even in the deepest depths of your sin, God is there. God knows you, and God, we're going to learn just a little bit, is a just judge. The third section I want us to see is that God is omnipotent. Or as my good friend Josh likes to say, omnipotent. The all-smelling God. But God is omnipotent. And this is the one I really want us to focus on, because this is one that people struggle with the most. A lot of people, if they have a problem with Christianity, this is one that they bring up. And omnipotence is the power of God. God is all powerful. And what a lot of people struggle with is they say, if God is so good, if He knows all things, if He knows the future, He knows the past, if He's everywhere present, and if He's all powerful, how in the world could a God like that allow the Holocaust to happen? How in the world could a God like that allow millions of babies to be aborted? How could a God like that, and then blank? As typically a person that struggles with these things will say. And so there's a lot of different theories about God that they'll interject. They'll say that God is good and He is powerful. He just doesn't care. And so when He created the universe, He set it on the shelf and never looked at it again. That's one theory. Another is that He is all powerful, but He's not good. That He has the power to interject in any single situation in the universe, but He doesn't care to, or maybe He even causes those. Another belief is that God is good, but He isn't all powerful. That God doesn't have the power to intervene in those situations and change the hearts and lives of those people and to stop Hitler and all these different things. And these are some tough stances and a tough view. If somebody was to ask you, if God is so good, how could He allow this to happen? What would your answer be? But the problem is that we are getting mixed up again. We are mixing up the relationship that we have with God and removing ourselves from down here where we ought to be and putting ourselves on the throne. Because we are beginning to think that we are omniscient, that we know what's best in every case. And we begin to think that the goal of the God of the universe is our happiness. We believe that lie, that God cares ultimately above everything else about our happiness. And that statement is not in a single place in Scripture. God is for His glory. He is for His glory above everything else in the universe. And so every situation you can see throughout history was that so He could be most glorified. I mean, we take it back to the Exodus with the Egyptians. He hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he could be most glorified in that situation. And it's something that grieves my heart and soul. That these terrible things have to happen. But because I delight myself in the Lord, I long for his glory above my happiness in the situation. So I believe with everything in me that God is good. Amen. That he is ultimately good. The epitome of good. And that he holds all the power in the universe at the same time. And I take myself off that throne and say, God, I don't know what's best in this situation. I don't know what should be done. But I trust you. I believe in you. Because I'm pursuing that right relationship and keeping you on the throne and me in the place that I belong. And that's what David's talking about, or God's talking about when it says David's after a man after God's own heart. That he is pursuing that right relationship between him and the Father. Really laying hold of it and believing in these truths of God. That he's all knowing, that he's everywhere present, and he's all powerful. And these are some tough truths, especially that last one. That's hard for us to trust in. But it's only in those, in the characteristics of God, that we can begin to pursue ultimate joy. The last section I want us to see. This is when I said earlier that you can be a little upset with me in my title, the Omnis of God. But the last point is, God is a just judge. There's not an omni for that one, I'm sorry. But God is a just judge. I want to start in verse 19 and read these few verses again. It says, "Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. O men of blood, depart from me. They speak against you with malicious intent. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with a complete hatred. I count them my enemies." This is a tough text. This is something that we call and we see throughout the Psalms an imprecatory psalm, which refers to God's just judgment. One of the things that we think about is the evilness of people. How they have betrayed God and radically killed people. But what you see, the offense of the people that David's talking about in this text, is something that blew my mind. It says, verse 20, this is the offense that these people is talking about, that God is pouring out his judgment on. Verse 20, it says, "They speak against you with malicious intent. Your enemies take your name in vain." It's not that they were vicious murderers, that they slept with whoever they wanted. It's that they spoke against the holy name of Jesus. And it was that they were deserving of full judgment of God. What about last week? We looked at it was the biting of one fruit that damned all of eternity. That's it. But yet we're so quick to rationalize our sin and our shortcomings. And say, oh yeah, this really isn't that bad. But God is a just judge, and one sin before the infinite God of the universe is deserving of infinite judgment. But what we see in Ephesians 2, but God being rich in mercy and steadfast love. It's by his grace that we are saved from that wrath. But God is just in the punishment of our sins. There's consequences to our sin, and he's so just and good in that. And what's something that blows my mind is how could David write those words about those guys after everything that he's done? It's because that he repented and believed in the cross that was to come. And this is how he sums up this entire psalm. In verse 23, he says, "Search me, O God, know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." And if you remember, that's the same way that he started the psalm. Let me show you how he started the psalm. It says, "O Lord, you have searched me and known me." And he changes it a little bit. First, it was a declaration that this is something that God has done, and now it's a question. Of, "Oh God, search me, oh God, and know my heart, and know my thoughts." God, this is what I want of you. Now, that's two radically different statements. The first is a realization that God has all power and authority to know everything about me, to know my thoughts, to know my future, to know my past. And at the end of this psalm, he has come to a realization that he wants to invite God into that space. There's a difference there. That's like what you see kids with their parents. Parent has the right and authority to take their phone whenever they want to look at everything in it. They have that right, they have that authority. But it completely changes the game when it says, "Hey Mom, you want to make sure I'm not doing anything against you and look through my phone?" Now that would never happen in a trillion years, but how radically different is that situation? Say you have every right, every authority, God, to know me, to judge me, to pour out your wrath on me. And even though you hold that right, I'm going to invite you into that space. Because I care about you deeply, I love you well, and I respect you and know you. So I want you to invade my heart. God, I want you to break my heart for what breaks you. God, I want you to convict me. I want you to challenge me. God, I want you, by your grace, to change me. God, remove from me, like we looked at Psalm 51 last week, remove from me my iniquities. God, mold me to be more like you, God. I'm going to invite you into that space. Have you done that with God? Or there's still some sin or some areas of your life that you're still holding on to with everything in you because you think you've hid them from the world. And even knowing that you haven't hid them from God, you still have convinced yourself somehow that you have. It's one of the most freeing things that you can do. Say, God, I want to invite you in this space. God, I want you to know me intimately. God, I want you to cleanse my heart. Remove these wicked ways away from me. Are you allowing God to work in your life like that? Are you in pursuit of God in your life like that? Or we usually run from conviction. We run from the areas of our life that we know that we're in sin, that we know we are wrong. But what David's finally doing at one point in his life is saying, God, I want to know. Because you are a just judge and I'm deserving of your full wrath. And because I now have a right relationship with you and I know more about you, I want to continue that relationship. And God, I want to experience your fullness in my life. I want you to know me deeply. And I want that to change my life. Is that you? Imagine there's some in this room. We talked about a lot of different character traits of God, 4 different traits of God. Imagine that there's some people in this room that doesn't know him at all. If that's you today, the coolest thing in the world about our God is that he wants a personal relationship with you. That he conquered sin and death with Jesus Christ on the cross for you, on your behalf. Amen. Just so that you can be in right relationship with him. That's right. And that is a glorious truth. So if you're in this room and you've never known that, never put your faith and trust in the power of the cross of Jesus, that's something that you can do today. It's something that I could talk you through, and Pastor Glad could talk with you about. But I imagine there's even more people in this room that have forgotten about the intricacies of God. Don't spend much time thinking about some of these character traits that has huge implications on our hearts and lives. And if that's you, my prayer is that during this time of invitation in just a few minutes, that you would spend time just doing business with the Lord, repenting of your sin, and thinking about the goodness of God and the implications it has on your life. Will you bow your heads a minute?